This is how things will work now. You'll live in the basement and pay rent like any other tenant. $1,200 a month. Utilities separate, of course. We're the heads of this household now.
James Hayes looked at the number. He didn't argue. He didn't ask why.
Linda, this is his house. He let us move in to help with the loneliness.
And now we are. He's a tenant, Joshua. End of discussion.
Peace. That's all I want now.
By evening, James carried a single box down to the basement. The room was small, with a concrete floor and one high window. No complaint. Just the sound of his footsteps on cold cement, then silence. A week later, James sat at the kitchen table at dawn, a tenant sipping coffee in a house he bought outright 37 years ago. He still wore his gold wedding band, the only thing she hadn't taken. 18 months earlier, James Hayes was not a tenant. He was a husband sitting beside a hospital bed, watching his wife Mary slip away.
Don't leave me with this silence.
Mary passed on a Tuesday morning. The funeral came and went, and James returned to a house that echoed with every footstep.
Dad, let Linda and me move in. You shouldn't be alone right now.
We'll look after you, James. This house needs people in it.
Maybe they're right. Mary would want the house full again.
The following weekend, Joshua and Linda moved in. Boxes filled the hallway, and for a time, the loneliness retreated. Linda cooked elaborate dinners. Joshua fixed the creaky porch step. The house breathed again.
James, I've planned a new spice rack for the kitchen. I hope you don't mind me making a few improvements.
It's starting, but I'm too tired to stop it.
Within a month, Mary's living room was gone. The floral curtains came down. Linda's abstract prints went up on the walls.
That was Mary's favorite chair. She used to read there every evening.
Linda began redirecting James's routines. When he tried to cook breakfast, she shooed him out of the kitchen.
The kitchen is my domain now. You sit, I'll bring you coffee.
Joshua saw it all. He poured his cereal and said nothing.
Linda, don't you think you're being a little harsh?
I'm not being harsh. I'm making this house work. Someone has to.
By the third month, James's belongings were migrating to the basement. A box here, a lamp there.
This is what I have left. 4 concrete walls and a small window.
He was still the owner on paper, but inside those walls, he was becoming a stranger in his own home. The first of the month landed on a Tuesday. Linda sat at the kitchen table with a spiral notebook, a landlord's ledger freshly opened.
Rent's due, James, $1,200. I'm sure you haven't forgotten.
James pulled a check from his blazer pocket. The signature was steady. The hand that signed had built something she didn't know about.
See? That wasn't difficult. This arrangement works for everyone.
Linda, charging him rent feels like we're taking advantage.
Taking advantage? We're giving him a place to live? You think this house runs on air?
I paid off this house in 1987. Now I pay to sleep in its basement.
He said nothing. He walked down the stairs to his room, the sound of his footsteps the only reply. The check cleared the following Friday, his money withdrawn from an account he'd built alone, repaying him for the roof over his head.
This is how it's going to be from now on, Joshua. And you need to get on board.
Linda Hayes walked into Hayes and Bradford every morning without ever reading the name on the wall.
Andrew Morrison's job will be mine. I just need the right dinner.
She had no idea the founder still lived, still owned the company, and was currently the man to whom she collected rent. James Hayes started that firm in 1979 with nothing but a handshake and a second mortgage. When he took it public in 1996, he kept 51%. He retired at 65 but never let go of that control. Andrew Morrison, the regional director Linda wanted to impress, kept a photo of James in his office. He called him Mr. Hayes.
A dinner at the house with Andrew will prove I'm ready for management.
James, sitting alone in his kitchen, knew nothing of the dinner plans being laid over his own roof. Soon, the man paying her rent would serve her boss coffee in his own kitchen.
Andrew, I'd love for you to come for dinner. I'm sure you'll find the house charming. This will be perfect. Once he sees my home, he'll know I'm ready for management.
In the hallway, James paused, his coffee cup held midair.
She's bringing him here into my house to climb a ladder I built.
James, when my boss comes Friday, you'll stay in the basement. I don't want him seeing the tenant.
Linda, you can't banish him to the basement during a dinner. He lives here.
Watch me, Joshua. This is about my career, not his comfort.
Let her have her stage. She doesn't know the play.
He said nothing. He had learned silence came with a lower price. The date was set. In 3 days, his founder's name would be spoken under his own roof. Friday arrived with the scent of roasted rosemary and the sharp, nervous edge of Linda's ambition.
Joshua, the wine glasses need polishing and make sure the napkins are folded. Andrew notices details. And James, I want you in the basement by 6. Don't make a sound. Not a single creak.
6 o'clock. She thinks I'll just vanish from my own home.
He could refuse. He could remind her this was his house, but he just nodded and walked away.
Linda, this feels wrong. He's my stepfather, not a servant.
He's a tenant, Joshua. And tonight, he's an inconvenience now. Please, set the table.
By 5:30, the dining table was a monument to her ambition, crystal, linen, and borrowed authority. James sat on the edge of his basement bed, listening to the creak of floorboards above him. The doorbell rang at 6:04. But the man in the basement had a different kind of clock in mind. Linda opened the front door, her smile a polished artifact, and extended a hand to Andrew Morrison.
Andrew, so glad you could come. Welcome to our home.
Thank you for having me, Linda. This is a lovely neighborhood.
They moved to the dining room, where Linda had set an immaculate stage. Candles flickered, the silverware gleamed.
I designed the layout myself. The kitchen, the living flow, it's all about efficiency.
She says ours like Dad never existed.
Andrew complimented the architecture, unaware he was standing in a room owned by the man his company was named after.
You've really made this place your own. It must be wonderful to have such a solid foundation.
Linda poured more wine and launched into a story about their recent renovation, never mentioning the actual owner. By the time the main course arrived, the basement stairs remained silent. But the silence had a pulse. Andrew had only meant to find the bathroom. Instead, he pushed open the kitchen door and stopped breathing entirely.
That face, that posture. I've seen it in photographs every single day for 2 years. Mr. Hayes? Sir, I didn't realize you lived in this neighborhood.
Andrew Morrison, you run the regional office, yes?
Yes, sir. I'm so sorry for intruding. I had absolutely no idea this was your home.
In the dining room, Linda froze with her wine glass halfway to her lips. She had heard the name Hayes spoken like a title, not a question.
He's just an old man paying me rent. He can't be. This can't be happening.
She pushed back her chair and walked to the kitchen. What she saw hollowed her out instantly.
Andrew? What is going on? Why are you calling him that?
Her boss didn't answer. He was staring at the man she had been collecting rent from, his body rigid with deference and fear.
Linda, this is James Hayes. The James Hayes. He founded Hayes and Bradford. He holds the controlling interest. I thought you knew. I assumed this is your home. I thought he was your relative. I don't understand.
He owns the company. I've been charging rent to the man who determines my entire career.
Andrew, please step outside with me. I believe this conversation isn't for the kitchen.
They stepped onto the porch, and the evening air was thick with a silence that Andrew could not break.
You will say nothing of this at the office to no one, and you will not ask Linda about it ever.
Of course, sir. I'll handle this with complete discretion. I'm so sorry for tonight.
Andrew walked to his car without looking back, his shoulders hunched, the weight of the evening a permanent scar on his professional life.
Now, Linda, I think it's time you and I had the conversation you've been avoiding for 18 months.
She did not answer. The woman who had demanded rent from him sat frozen, her carefully built world now a trap of her own making.
18 months ago, I let you into this house because I was grieving and I believed you were family. Joshua is Mary's son from her first marriage. I have no children of my own, but I raised him. He is my son. I was going to leave everything to both of you, this house, the company, all of it, without hesitation.
Every rent demand, every condescending word, I was setting fire to an inheritance I never knew existed.
But you showed me exactly what you value. You reduced me to a tenant, and you did it without a second thought.
James turned toward the hallway. His voice carried no rage, just the weight of a man who had finally been forced to speak.
Joshua, come in here. You need to hear what I'm about to say. All of it. What did she do? The way he's looking at me, something is shattered, and I don't even know what it is yet.
You aren't my blood, Joshua, but I have loved you as my own since you were a boy. Tonight, that love requires an unthinkable choice.
Linda tried to speak, but no sound came. The center of her world had collapsed, and she was only now realizing that she had pulled the trigger herself.
Joshua, you have until Sunday. Stay married to her, or stay in my will. One or the other. There is no middle ground.
Joshua, please. I made a mistake. We can fix this. Don't throw away our marriage.
How do I choose between the woman I married and the man who raised me? Either way, someone I love gets destroyed.
Joshua stared at the floor, his breath shallow. Every second of silence pressed harder on the room.
I won't pressure you tonight. But Sunday, Joshua. That's the deadline.
Without a word, Joshua turned and walked out the front door. The click of the latch was deafening.
James, you can't do this. I'll change. I swear I'll change.
You had 18 months to change, Linda. Every rent check was a choice. You made it.
The living room fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. James stood alone, the weight of the evening settling into his bones.
I hope I haven't lost both of them.
For 3 agonizing days, the house held its breath. The wedding photo on the mantel stared down at the silence like an accusation.
Joshua, please. I never wanted this. If I'd known who he was, I would have done things differently.
She says she'd act differently, but only because she knows now, not because it was wrong.
James stayed in the basement, not hiding, waiting. He wanted a choice that belonged to Joshua, no pressure. On Sunday evening, at 6 sharp, Joshua walked into the living room. His eyes were red-rimmed, but his posture was straight.
I've made my decision. I can't be with someone who turned my father into a tenant, who saw his grief as an opportunity. That's not love. I choose the will. I choose Dad.
Linda's face drained entirely. The word Dad had severed the last thread.
I may have lost my marriage, but I haven't lost who I should have been all along.
Linda's suitcase snapped shut. The sound echoed through the house like a final period.
You're all making a mistake, but I won't beg.
Joshua stood at the living room window, his hand flat against the cold glass, watching her silhouette.
This is the end of everything we built.
The car engine turned over. Headlights scraped the driveway and then were gone. The house fell into a silence heavier than any argument they had ever endured.
I chose right. So why does it feel like everything is still shattered?
The next morning, James made coffee for one. No one spoke. The kitchen clock ticked louder than it had in years.
The healing hasn't started. This is just the quiet after the storm.
The basement door held no lease now, but the silence was its own kind of rent. For the first 2 weeks, the only sounds in the house were the furnace and the floorboards creaking.
I should say something, but every word feels like a landmine.
James continued to sleep in the basement, a habit now carved into his bones. The room held no lease, only silence.
He needs to come to me. I've already asked too much of him.
Joshua stood in the basement where his father had been exiled and noticed a photo he'd never seen him as a boy, with James and Mary both smiling.
He never gave up on me, even when I did nothing.
That night, James heard the basement door open. Footsteps paused, then retreated without a word.
Maybe he's starting to see clearly.
But the next morning, they ate toast in silence again. The walls held the weight of unspoken words. The house was theirs, but they were still strangers in it. Joshua found a dusty camcorder in the basement, loaded with a tape labeled 1993, Mary's birthday.
I haven't seen this in 20 years.
The flickering screen filled with Mary's laughter. A young Joshua blowing out candles, James beside him whole. James paused in the doorway, the sound of his late wife's voice freezing him mid-step.
He found the old tapes.
Without a word, Joshua gestured to the empty space on the sofa. James sat. They watched together. Mary's voice filled the room. No one spoke. A tear traced Joshua's jaw.
This is what we lost, and what we might still have.
The tape ended. Screen static. Neither moved. Then James reached over and turned off the TV. Their eyes met, and for the first time in weeks, they saw each other. The morning after the tape, Joshua made coffee, 2 mugs. He placed one in front of James without a word.
It's not an apology, but it's a start.
Thank you, Joshua.
The next morning, 2 mugs again. The ritual grew silent but steady.
Dad, I thought we could repaint the living room. Take down those prints.
They spent the following weeks stripping the walls bare and rolling fresh paint over the scars. Once, James smeared paint on his nose. Joshua saw it and laughed. A real laugh. The kind that catches you off guard.
You've got more paint on you than the wall.
By spring, the kitchen had become their stage. Joshua scrambling eggs, James buttering toast, the choreography of a home relearning itself. The wound still ached, and no grand words had been spoken. But as they stood side by side washing the brushes, they were no longer strangers. A year bled into the soil. With James's quiet investment, Joshua opened a small flower shop, and the blooms began to mend what words hadn't.
Dad, look. The new website went live. Orders are pouring in.
You built that, Joshua, not me.
I couldn't have done it without you, Dad.
The word "dad" landed like a key turning in a lock. James's composure cracked for the first time.
I've waited 30 years to hear you say that and mean it like this.
Joshua reached out and pulled him into an embrace. Not a tenant and a landlord, a father and a son. That afternoon, James walked to his study and added the final signature to his will. Everything, the house, the company, the trust flowed to Joshua Hayes.
Mary would have been so proud of him, of us.
The ink dried. The house was no longer a battlefield. It was a home paid for in full, twice over. Every quarter, Andrew Morrison drove up with a report, and for a quiet hour they discussed the firm James had built.
The company is thriving, sir. Hayes and Bradford remains a leader in the region.
Good. That's because of people like you, Andrew.
Evenings belonged to Joshua. He'd come through the door with takeout, the house filling with the scent of Thai basil.
Dad, I picked up from the place you like. They remembered you.
Did they remember the extra ginger?
The dining table, once a monument to ambition, now held mismatched plates and easy laughter.
This quiet, this rhythm, it's worth everything I lost.
After dinner, they'd take the porch, the rockers creaking a rhythm older than any argument, and watch the sun drop. James would touch his wedding band and smile, a faint, peaceful curve because Mary was still there. Across town in a smaller firm, Linda Hayes sat in a cubicle half the size of her old one, her ambition now a dull ache. Her phone lit up with an alert. Hayes and Bradford reports record profits for 3rd straight year. She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering.
That could have been my headline.
She scrolled past the article, her jaw tight, and set the phone face down on the desk. In the break room, two colleagues laughed about the Hayes and Bradford success. They didn't notice her leaving. Her apartment still held unpacked boxes and the divorce decree on the coffee table. She sat there for an hour, staring at the ceiling, the divorce papers a quiet monument to her arrogance.
I threw away a whole life for rent money.
There was no one to blame but herself. Outside her nondescript office building, she paused and looked up at the modest nameplate. It read Henderson and Cross, not Hayes and Bradford. On the last warm evening of autumn, they sat on the porch, the rockers moving in a slow, matched rhythm. The sky burned orange and pink, and neither felt the need to fill the silence.
I never thought quiet could feel this good.
It's the quiet after a long storm.
James glanced down at his wedding band, the gold catching the last light of the day.
She's still here, Mary. She's in all of this.
Joshua watched his father, the lines on his face now ones of peace, not weariness. No more words passed between them. The creak of the rockers was enough. The house behind them glowed with soft light, a place that had finally become a home. James touched his ring and smiled. The battle was over. The victory was this. In the end, James Hayes did not care about the empire he had built. He had nearly lost a son, and that loss would have been the only one that counted. But Joshua chose him, and in that choice, the rest of the world fell silent. The lease, the cold demands, the $1,200, they meant nothing now. What remained were two coffee mugs on a wooden counter, always placed side by side. A porch where rockers moved without hurry, and a garden where flowers bloomed by hands that once signed a tenant lease. James would touch his wedding band and remember Mary and know that she was proud. The house was no longer a battlefield. It was a home, paid for in patience long before any mortgage. And in the stillness of that autumn evening, the victory was complete. Fade to black.